Tonight, we have the pleasure of speaking with Maureen Langloss, who's the editor-in-chief of Split Lit magazine. And Maureen is a lawyer turned writer and a mother of three living in New York City. Her writing has been published in Alaska Quarterly Review, Best Small Fictions, Harvard Review, Kenyon Review, Plowshares, Wigleaf, and elsewhere. Her work has received the Copper Nickel Editor's Prize in Prose, made the distinguished list in the Best American Short Stories, and has been nominated for a Pushcart Prize and Best of the Net. She's a graduate of Harvard College and Harvard Law School. Thank you so much for being here, Maureen. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to see so many people joining. So
Me
thank you to everyone out there, even though I can't see your faces.
And I really appreciate all the questions that we got beforehand. For those of you who sent in a question when you registered, we'll make sure to get to as many of those as we can. And for those of you at home, we would love it if you would put any questions that you want to in the chat, and we'll answer those for you. So first, Maureen, I'm really fascinated by your background as a lawyer and how you became an editor and started a journal. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Well, I have to say that law school now feels like, I mean, being a lawyer feels like a very long time ago, almost a different life. And I knew when I was in law school that I had made a mistake when we were assigned to write three papers for Martha Minnow's family law class. And I went and asked her, "Hey, would you mind if I wrote three short stories instead?" And Professor Minnow was so cool. She was like, "Sure, that's great." But I mean, that should have, like, alarm bells should have been going off in my mind that I was really not a lawyer. I was always a writer. So, but I basically was writing novels while trying to be a lawyer, and it just really wasn't working. I kept taking like a leave of absence from my law firm and to write, and then I'd come back. And finally, I decided to write full time. But that was really lonely because, when you're in an office, one thing I loved about being a lawyer was my peers and colleagues were so great. Like they were really interesting, super accomplished, smart, amazing writers. And so I really missed that when I was writing. So it was like me and my kids and me writing. So I saw that Split Lip, well, I started looking for some sort of outlet, and I saw that Split Lip was advertising for a Flash editor, and this was almost 10 years ago. I'm on year 9. I basically started exactly 9 years ago. And so that's really how it started, was just feeling a little lonely and wanting to be more involved in a community. And anybody who's feeling that right now on this call, who feels it all alone writing, like joining a magazine is really one of the best possible things you can do because it's been. I have so many terrific like friends who I think will be my friends for the rest of my life who are a part of Splitlet magazine. Some of them are writers who we've published, and others are staff. And I just feel really, really fortunate that my windy life led me to Split Lip. It's just been such a pleasure.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what kind of law did you?
So I was a Latin America specialist, which when that's your specialty, you end up doing corporate law. So I was writing a lot of like huge complicated contracts for, like actually the Venezuelan oil company, PDVSA. It was like my one of my biggest clients. And then I moved over to Human Rights Watch, where I still covered the Americas, but from a human rights perspective, and that was completely different work. I covered Colombia at the time. The FARC was really doing a lot of pipe bombing, and I was covering a lot of that. And I also covered Venezuela, and I went back to Venezuela and actually had a meeting with President Hugo Chavez and my boss right after the first coup attempt against him. So it was I had some pretty interesting experiences as a lawyer that were hard to leave behind, to be honest. But yeah.
Yeah, and that's so timely now. And these things are they always come back around. And I think
I know.
there are usually two distinct paths that people take to work in the literary world. Some may start off majoring in literature and going the MFA route. Um, And others just kind of find themselves there in this roundabout way where maybe they didn't see literature as a viable career for themselves for one reason or another when they were younger, and then they get there anyway. And then I think that very frequently, whatever it is you did very much informs the work that you do. How do you think being a
Right.
lawyer informs what you do as an editor with Split Lip now?
For sure. I mean, I went into the law I was really torn because the social justice side of me I went to law school really planning to do social justice work, but I also had been an English major, and I was always a writer, and I worked on, like, the Harvard Advocate as an undergrad, their literary magazine, like, I had these 2 parts of me that were very hard to do both because you know, you it's law is so all-consuming. My days were, like, ending at midnight, and so it just left no time for, writing, um, and but I still feel in my interest in writing, I'm still really interested in social justice, and even though I write fiction and poetry, that completely informs who I am as a writer. I see all writing as very political. Even if you think you're writing about, like, I don't know, the potatoes on the table for dinner or something, that is political too. I think it's all political. So, having gone through, like, a rigorous experience with that world, it definitely informs who I am as a writer. And then as an editor, like the one thing that you cannot believe as a lawyer is like you are spending so much time perfecting whether it's a contract or an argument. Um, it was so much editing, there was so much proofreading, there was so much refining. We would go through drafts, like 100 drafts of a document, um, and so that really trained my eye to when I review work for a Split Lip now, I am still drawing on those tools that I developed as a lawyer. So yeah, it all ends up being related. I think you're right. It's not, I don't every day think, "Oh, I'm being a lawyer now." But and I will say also now that I'm EIC instead of a Flash editor, the I am aware of, like, what is our risk as an organization? What lines am I willing to cross so that eh I'm just aware of, can we be sued? There are a lot of things that, uh I'm probably more conservative than my staff about because I was a lawyer before I did this work and saw how badly things can go.
That's really interesting, and I think that's on the minds of a lot of writers right now, especially
Right.
those to lean more political in their work. Can you talk about that a little bit? What do you think the role of a writer is in 2026, and um, what what types of considerations might writers be thinking about, and how to stay, I guess, safe maybe
Right, right. Well,
are yeah.
I don't think you have to write about what's happening, in our world, uh, at all as a writer in some direct way. I just think the fact that you're writing is political because there's been so much repression. We're seeing whole books being banned, and this whole talk of like viewpoint diversity in universities, which is such bullshit. And there are so many ways that we're being told not to express ourselves, and just the fact that we're out there writing is really good enough. And I don't think anyone should feel like they have to address the elephant in the room. Just writing anything is when, like, we're all feeling kind of dark, is a huge triumph. And the fact that we can still feel this, like, artistic beauty inside ourselves and inside the work that we're reading of others is amazing. Like, that we're not just, like, all climbing under our covers and being fully depressed. I just I think of it as very hopeful that there are all these people joining this chat right now, that we all still care about the arts and about a creative life. So I would just concentrate on that. I don't think we have a duty to write about a particular topic or to address. I think just raising our voices at all is a political act.
I love that. Thank you so
So,
much.
I don't know, maybe that's too, like, Maybe that's really naive, but
I don't think so. Do you think that split lip, is there a certain aesthetic that you look for? Do you tend to lean political? I know that one of the things that you look for is really voice driven work. What,
right.
what does that look like, in
I
terms of
mean,
content?
I think that the way that I would say we are openly political is that we really care about publishing diverse work. And I think we all on staff consider diversity as a super broadly. It's not, it's gender, it's race, it's class, but it's also age, it's disability, it's, neurotypical or not neurotypical. There are so many ways. It's geographical. So we really try to just be as wide thinking, both in terms of what we're accepting to publish, but also on our staff. We're very aware of diversity on our staff. Um, so, uh, as far as how that relates to voice, I think eh, with the voice, I think it's a somewhat of an aesthetic thing that when you feel like you're reading someone who, reading something that only could have been said in this one particular way by this one particular person because of their one particular life, like that's what voice is. And you can't actually, teach someone really like what is voice. It's just like gotta come, and before we were uh before we met, you had sent me some of the questions ahead of time, and one of the questions was like, "Do you have a favorite thing you've ever published?" Which I really don't. I love everything. I love everything we've published, and I don't have a favorite. But in thinking about voice, I often think of Chris Gonzalez, who was one of the first writers who I published as a flash editor, who just like his story that he sent us had this voice that I had never read before. It was just his voice. And and um and I loved it, right? And so that's what I think we're always looking for when we say voice. A voice doesn't have to be loud. It can actually be really quiet. It can be reserved, but it can also be very loud. It's whatever comes out of you. Sometimes it might be humorous. Sometimes it might be really serious. We just published a piece about crows that's like very lyric. It's a very different voice than what we often publish, like maybe more poetic for fiction, and it's not really very plot driven, but the voice just felt so unique. I don't know if I'm answering your question,
Yeah,
but
I think so. There there's, I think a very common question that people ask is like, what is it about a submission that makes you say, I have to publish this? What does a submission have to have in order for it to
right.
feel right for Split Lip?
Right. That's such a hard question because we've published so many different kinds of pieces. So you could never say, well, it has to have this, this, this. The minute I tell you all the things it should have, you'll find a piece that we published that actually just focused on one of those things. So it, I think that when you read a lot of submissions, you tend to find that certain submissions just have a spark on the page. There's just something that spark. It's a quality, like an energy or something. And then you look at and sometimes it's because it's a really interesting premise, or sometimes it's because the structure is really interesting or the form is really interesting. Um, Sometimes it's the topic. We had someone send us, um, and now I'm gonna forget her name, I'm really bad at remembering names, it'll come to me, but she was writing about being a librarian in a jail, and this was such a unique experience, to write about being a librarian in a prison. So for that, it was just such a unique experience. We also, um had published someone who had a heart transplant as a 9-year-old, and they were talking about how this impacted their life. So these are things that are just so unique And the spark was in part because it was such a unique and interesting thing that these people had experienced, and this was in memoir. Um, but I think for, the most part, as most things that we publish have, beautiful language. They have a really powerful start that, like, draws you right in. They have, they build to some sort of point of emotional resonance by the end so that the finale, you really feel something, but and you're not asking the question, "So what?" at the end of it because you know what the what is, even if you can't express it in words, you just felt it. Um, so and then for fiction, we do like, a little bit of story, an arc of some sort, a change, a shift. I don't know if you wanna call it plot, but, we want a lot of readers in the queue will say, like, "Nothing happens in this." Sometimes it's okay if nothing happens, if there is some feeling of movement, particularly in a flash. And then characters that are developed that feel really real on the page, and that often comes from, like, unique, subtle details, like the fine detail work and pieces that we accept, where they might not have put a lot of details in, but what they chose was so perfect or it's so evocative. Um, so at the line level, then also, like, of course, setting I mean, I'm telling you all the things that are a part of every story, but they all kind of weave together to actually build a whole cohesive work. What we see a lot of actually are really cool premises that we're like, oh, this premise is so cool. We love it. And then we read it a few more times and we realize the characters aren't that developed or they didn't really focus on the setting or it's like bodies floating in space having this cool idea or the dialogue is really flat or expository instead of revealing of the characters, and that happens so often, and I my sense is that those writers, if they had sat with the piece a little bit longer, it would have been something that we would have liked to published, but uh, yeah, I mean, my big advice to everyone submitting is, like, after you've written a draft, put it in a drawer for, like, 2 or 3 weeks, come back to it, maybe have your writers group read it or somebody read it, not AI, have human read it for you and give you some feedback and just sit with it for a while, even, like, also a poem, come back to it because I think that a lot of what we publish has these layers of meaning like, that you kind of feel like things are operating on so many levels, and I think the layers come from time. This I know there are people who disagree with me, there are people who write amazing first drafts, but I feel like the time of going back through it and layering in new details, having a deeper understanding of the characters over time. It's like you're polishing it or something, and it keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper, and that's really my big advice to people is just take more time,
Yeah,
revise more.
I think that is such good advice, and I really appreciate, you going into w some of the things that submissions do not to get accepted, because I think that's the other side of that
Right,
question that's really important, and I think very frequently it's very easy, to send out work that's like 90% of the way there, right? And you don't really know until you've kinda sat with it for a while and let it cool off,
right,
so, yeah, I think very few people write a perfect first draft, and revision needs to happen so many times. It's not just
right,
1 or 2 drafts, right?
right. I agree. I agree, especially for very short work because it's so much harder to make a poem of 14 lines, like, you gotta go through that baby a lot of times to have it really work. And same with the Flash. I think there are a lot of people doing writing from prompts right now, which I think it's great. I love a prompt too, but I think that gives people this feeling of, like, they're writing to the prompt and they do it fast and they follow the and they have this, like their, imagination is ignited by this prompt, and it sometimes feels like you've got a hole there, um, and actually you don't.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, it's happened to me too. So I'm like the first one to have, I've been there, done that. So,
So how do you know when a piece is ready to send?
oh yeah, it's so hard, right? That's so hard. I don't think a piece from my work is never done until it's published. And I've definitely sent out work too early, for
Mhm.
sure. I definitely have. So I would say, yeah, it's never done till it's published. And actually, even after it's published, because now I've been putting together a collection of many stories I've published over the years, and I'm still editing those stupid stories. I'll never stop.
I think
So
I think there are a lot of, famous authors that work that way too, right? They published a novel and then they would still go in and tweak it.
yeah.
We have a couple questions in the chat that I think are really interesting. Jackie is wondering if certain split lip editors gravitate towards specific subject matter or POV. What do you
Oh, that's interesting. Um, so Chris Belk, who's our memoir editor, posted this week about things that he wants, and he so beautifully said, "I'm omnivorous." And I think that that is the absolute best way to describe all of us editors. What we don't want is the same thing over and over again. And actually recently, well, so I don't know why. Our queue always has a ton of animals in it, like so many animals. And I do think a lot of us gravitate to like stories that happen to have animals in it. It turns out that like a number of our staff worked at the zoo at zoos when they were younger, I mean, which was a funny thing to find out about ourselves. Like so many people raising their hands that they've done this. But we're all really sick of animals, actually. Like, we are so sick of it. We published, a piece about jellyfish, which is an amazing piece of flash fiction. We published that piece about crows. We've had so many and we're kind of tired of it. But I think it got to be a thing because it was something we were drawn to, you know? But no, I would say we don't have anything that subject matter that we're drawn to. Please, whatever. Like, I would like a story about a boot. I don't care. Like, if it's well done and interesting, whatever, bring it on. Any subject, any subject.
I think that's such an interesting challenge for those at home because I think animals are often, they act as a symbol, right? And
Of course, right,
symbolically as writers, but inanimate objects also, do the same thing. So I think that's a really
right.
interesting challenge. Patrick is wondering, he says, "So you're supposed to always write as and about and sound like yourself." Do you think that's true?
Oh, yeah, that's really interesting. Okay, good question. No, you can sound like someone else. Why not? Yeah, I mean, the voice, yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be your voice. Obviously, your brain is making it. So it's your brain's in there somehow. But no, as a writer myself, I like to try on different perspectives. And that's a really good question. I don't think you have to at all. I do think that you have to be careful of like, not writing a character who's so far outside yourself that you couldn't possibly understand them or, uh, you know I think that there are times when you have to be careful, right? Like, yeah, I think that, there are times, but in general, like, if you wanna write a character who's, like, super flamboyant and you're not, or who's an introvert and you're not, or an extrovert and you're not, like, I think that's fun. That's, like, how we play on the page. But I have a feeling that even when we try and do that, our own voices are still, like, there, right?
Yeah, I
They're
think
probably still there.
initially when I read that question, I thought, "Well, what about persona poems?" But you always do.
Right,
You're gonna
right,
sound like yourself even
right.
in a as someone else. So I think you're right about
Right, right, but I think it's a good exercise to, like, consciously be trying to write from different voices to, like, uh, hone your writing, and I think it's a good exercise, so
kinda going along with that, Chris says, "Yeah, having a voice is to write uninfluenced by someone you happen to be reading. I've been diverted into dozens of voices."
right.
Do you think that do you think that we can be uninfluenced by the things that we read? And what does that mean for our voice if we are?
I've read someone on some social media saying to writers, the advice was like, don't read other people when you're writing because it'll influence your own voice and like you should not do that. And I thought that was tooey. I did not like that at all. I think you should be reading other people all the time, constantly, and because like maybe it's going to influence you, but I think that all those inputs of reading other people actually just are super stimulating to your own voice, and, I'm sure there are times where I mean, I know it's happened, like, on long projects, in particular novels I've written, where you really for a whole novel, you have to stay in, like, the same tone, really, and that's tricky because you do read things, and then there are definitely times where I'll be reading, like, Virginia Woolf or something, and all of a sudden my writing gets, like, very different. So you have to be aware of it, but I think most writers, the more practice you get, the more confidence you have in just writing the way you're writing, and reading other people is just helping you. I don't know, it's all, like, going into your brain, right? Don't stop reading. I think it's terrible advice. Do not stop reading.
Um, is there anyone that you really like to read that you'd like to recommend for people at home in case they
Oh,
haven't done enough reading
that's
lately?
That's such a well, I'm reading something so good right now, and I don't know how you pronounce her name. Tove or Tave Jansson? Do you know the whether it's Tove or Tave? Swedish, Finnish, writer who's translated, and I'm reading her short stories. They are so phenomenal. I just love them so much. I'm almost done with this collection, and it's actually kind of rare for me to finish a collection. I usually get a little tired by the end and end up picking up something else. So I would really recommend that. That's what I'm reading right now. Um,
Thank you for
so
the recommendation. And do you find when you're putting together like, you're putting together a short story collection and you're reading a short
mhm,
story collection, do you find that you gravitate toward the type of work that you're currently
mm.
writing? No?
No, I actually and I know I have writer friends, maybe some of you on the chat do this too. I like to be reading a book of poems, a memoir, nonfiction, a novel, and a collection of short stories all at the same time. Uh, which gets confusing, and it means I often don't finish books, but I like because, like, every day I might have a different mood, you know, and so I just want to be in each of the genres at once so that I can pivot to something else based on my reading mood. So no, I just read, yeah. Um Sometimes I mean, sometimes when I was, uh, like, when I'm writing a novel, sometimes reading other novels can be demoralizing, like, it can make me feel bad about myself because other novels can be, like, so good, and then it makes me feel very, very bad about my own work. So sometimes then I will read in different genres. Like, I've read a lot of poetry while I was drafting this novel um that I've been working on. Like, I read a lot of poetry, and I actually started writing a lot of poetry during that time too. I think as like, it was a different little part of my brain, that didn't trigger all this, like, self-doubt.
Yeah. Yeah, and another way to sort of stretch too, like,
Right, exactly.
to
Yeah,
in
yeah.
one genre. My nightstand looks very much like that. There's, like
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at my nightstand right now. I'm in my bedroom right now, and, my nightstand is so scary. It's really a mess, and I'm scared at night it's gonna, like, fall on me sometimes, but anyway.
um, there's a lot of people in the chat agreeing that a story is never done.
Oh,
Um,
good.
Patrick has, 2 tree poems where the tree is the narrator. I think that's really fascinating.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about I just read something about trees, and I'm trying to remember where it's from. Oh, well, that'll come to me.
So, let's see, there are a couple things. So we talked about some favorite themes, and some not so favorite themes right now. What are some questions that, um, you think you you tend to select or publish, to answer?
Mm.
Are there stories that answer a certain question over and over again that you gravitate toward? And also, are there questions you'd kinda rather be done answering? Um
So, No, I just have to say no, like, you could ask the same question 1,000 different times and someone would answer it 1,000 different ways, so, no. Like, I know there are people on our staff who are like, "Oh, not another story set in a bar about a breakup," like and I don't feel that way at all. We're actually gonna publish a breakup story in May 15th, and because I feel like that's, like, this human thing, we all go through breakups, and we can talk about this forever until we die.
Yeah.
So, I have no particular questions I'm looking for and no questions that I'm, like, against. Really, like, I don't think people should censor themselves for editors either, like, on that level. Write what you wanna write, and if it's a question you find interesting, then what you have to say about it will be interesting. Like, there's no topic that's been done, right? I just actually, like, I had there are a couple of really amazing books that are out about artists, and my next novel that I've just started working on is about an artist, and I have this one, like, feeling of, like, ball in my throat, like, "Oh, no, people wrote about artists, maybe I shouldn't do that," and then I was like, "What?" Like, of course my story is gonna be different from theirs. Theirs were really great, but it doesn't mean that the fact that 2 or 3 novels about artists or painters are coming out in this window of time means that I don't have something different to say about it. So
How do you feel about, stories about writers? Is that
yeah, we've published do you all know Josh Genslow? He published a story about a writer who, that we published. It was one of my early pieces, and I encourage you all to go read it. He's a great writer, and it was about a writer who's like what he writes starts to become real. Um, so anyway, I think that stories about writing, some of them feel less exciting because we've all been through it, we kinda know it, and it's hard to make that topic new to a bunch of writers. However, when done well, I think it's really great, like and in fact, there are a couple of, um, Chilean poet wrote that story, and why am I forgetting? Zambra, I think, is the author, about a poet is one of the most genius books I've ever read. So, I think that, you can do it well, it's just that it has to be uniquely good,
okay. Uh,
right?
Larry in the chat is wondering, I think this goes back to when we were talking about not writing too far outside of your own experience. Larry's wondering, what are your thoughts on a man writing in first person and bringing in a female character who becomes more and more important to the story in literary fiction?
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't have a problem with writing if you're a man, you write a woman character. I don't have a I mean, we published, a story about a miscarriage, this issue that's up on our homepage right now, and what we really all liked about it was that it was from the man's point of view because it's so rare. We get a lot of miscarriage stories, actually, a lot. There are a lot of miscarriage stories, and this one felt unique because it was actually from the point of view of the father. However, it was written by a woman. So, I think that she did a great job of, um, and I think that, it is possible to write uh, outside of your own experience. However, I would never write personally a first person point of view of a black woman or a black man or um, an Asian woman or man. Like that experience is something that I just can't really envision. And I wouldn't feel comfortable. I might feel comfortable writing that person in my story, but not from their point of view.
Mm,
Um, uh, so yeah, I don't know if that fully answers the question,
yes,
but
I think that's a really interesting distinction, writing through the lens, is a different experience. Yeah. Cindy is wondering, can you talk us through the mechanics of what happens to our submission after we send it to Splitlet?
oh, sure, this is a good question. So it's a really long journey, a really long journey. Like basically, every submission is read by 2 readers first, and then, it will be read by an editor, either an assistant editor or an editor. So usually every piece is read by at least 3 people. At that stage, the editor is gonna make a call like, "Are we gonna have more people read this or not?" And at that stage, I would say like 80% of stories are rejected. So that can happen somewhat quickly because there can be 2 people in the queue at the same time. Actually, I rarely open up Submittable and there's not someone in the queue at the same time as me, or someone didn't just just read something and comment on it. So in Submittable, we all like we vote and we leave a comment on every piece. Every piece is commented on and voted on. But I would say that the pieces that are immediately rejected like that, there's kind of l a common set of things that are the reason why they're rejected without further discussion. It's like I actually have a list that I give to readers to be things to look out for, and one of our readers just said, "Wow, I can't believe you're right, like, actually, most stories have one of these problems, one of these issues." And so there are things like not enough tension. A story feels really summarized, or like we're reading the summary of the story instead of the actual summary. That is a big one. It happens a lot. It's underdeveloped in some way. Either a character is underdeveloped or a theme is underdeveloped. There's not enough emotional resonance, or it's overly sentimental. It feels like a Hallmark card. A really, weak or unearned ending. So often the story will be so great until the last paragraph where it fails to come together, and it's just such a shame, like, that's always heartbreaking. It takes a long time to get going, like a lot of throat clearing at the start of the piece. That's a very common reason for early quick rejection. Nothing happens, like, we already talked about that, but pacing issues, parts of the story move way too fast, and then other parts, uh, feel like they could be compressed. It's a scene, not a story. It's all internal. It's not internal enough. I mean, how frustrating is that, right? How do you get that just right? It would work better as a longer piece, or it really needs compression. It's got cliche or tired language. Oh my gosh, you can't believe how many poems we receive. The half cliche writing, you cannot believe it. It's like every time we open Submittable, there's a poem with language that is so stale. And I like writers, like that in poetry is like, yeah, like let's try not to go there. But anyway, that's a one pet peeve of mine in the poetry queue. Dialogue that feels expository and is not kind of revealing of the characters or in some way dynamic for the story. So those are all the like reasons that things get kind of shut down at that stage. But all the rest of the stories, so like 20% of the stories, then go on and they're read by like as many readers as can be read by. Then all the genre editors will kind of come together, and we often talk in Slack, and we'll chat like, "What do you think?" We'll talk about it, and then if the genre editor really loves it, the genre editor takes it to what's called the acceptance committee. The acceptance committee is actually a multi-genre board that every one of our editors, assistant editors, editorial assistants sits on, and we all then review it as a group. Because, we only publish one piece in each genre each month. So it's a huge commitment. Like, we really want to be in love with the pieces that we're publishing every year because we're only publishing 10 poems. We're only publishing 10 flashes. We're only publishing 10, uh, memoirs. So we'll sit with it in the committee, and it's great for all of us, all the genre editors, because they get to know like, it's funny, some people, when they start, they're like, "Well, I'm not a poet, so I can't really opine here," but then it turns out, like, the non-poets are so good at reading poetry. They have great thoughts and, so it's exciting and dynamic, and that is where, yeah, the ultimate and we don't, like, vote. I mean, people will say, "I'm in favor of this," or "I'm not," but it's more an opportunity to have a conversation about the piece and make editing suggestions, and then the genre editor will kind of go back and think about all the comments and make the ultimate call. So that it's a pretty lengthy and involved process. And if you get published in Split Lip, it's in my opinion, a huge accomplishment. Like, it's a pretty big deal given that that many people read your work. And the other thing I will say is that we've almost never accepted a piece where everyone on acceptance committee loved it or where all the readers loved it. I don't think we've ever. So it just tells you how much personal taste is involved, that a piece that half of us totally love, the other half really hates. We actually have that happening right now. We have a piece that is like that. Half the folks love it and the other half don't. And, we're going to have to figure out what to do, you know?
Yeah, that's a really tough situation to be in, and especially if you only get to publish one piece per month. Do you
Right.
ever, I mean, what happens when you have two that you really love? You can't hold it for the next month
Oh,
because,
we do. We hold up. Oh,
okay,
yeah. We'll sometimes have things lined up for 6 to 9 months. Yeah. Not always. We like that. I would always prefer to have things booked out as far as in advance as possible, but we're not always able to do that. So when you're submitting to us, you're not submitting for the next issue, you're submitting for the next available spot.
right, right. And so how far out is your lead time typically?
It just varies so much. Like for our memoir, we were booked out like 6 or 9 months, and then all of a sudden we were like behind. So we just accepted something for June, for instance, but that feels late. Like it feels really late. Um, and then we take a summer break, nothing July or August. So in all of our genres, we're now accepting for, we actually accepted our first poem for September today.
Okay, well,
So
congratulations. But that
yeah,
says a lot if you were 6 to 9 months out and then suddenly you were behind. That means that for
yeah.
several months, maybe you were not
We
making the right submissions, right?
Yeah, it wasn't that we weren't reading. We actually were very much reading. And unfortunately, there are lulls in the queue. Uh, I think that people are having a hard time writing right now. I'm going to be honest. I think that sometimes, like I've noticed, like during COVID, I noticed that the quality of the writing really dipped. And I think we were all dealing with trauma, right? So we were writing, but we struggled to find work we could fall in love with during that period of time. And this spring has been interestingly also like uh I think people are struggling. Maybe that's just my own impression, but
Yeah.
um
I think that um, when it comes to collective trauma or personal trauma, a lot of people, they write as a form of processing it, but it's very difficult to do in the
right,
moment until some distance has.
right. And then we also look at ourselves like, are we as a community feeling flat and down and like is our own mood influencing how much we like or don't like a submission?
Right.
It could really be like, is it me? Am I just being really finicky right now? Or am I not feeling emotional resonance because nothing in life is making me feel emotional resonance? I don't know. I don't know. That could be also part of it.
Well, one thing I heard was during the COVID years, submissions went up because some people had more free time. Do you think that sometimes during those times it's simply newer writers who are at the beginning of their careers are submitting more?
I don't know. I don't know. I can't answer that question because I haven't done a rigorous analysis of it and I don't have a gut feeling. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But at Switlip, I will say we we always have our eyes open for a new writer. And in fact, everybody who's a new writer should put that in their cover letter. This would be my first publication because we love to discover someone. We were the first publication, I believe, of a guy named Rennie Gong, who we're actually publishing for the second time. But we published his first story. I'm pretty sure he was like a first year sophomore at Columbia, and his voice just really stood out, and we were so pumped to find his voice. And then it turns out, like, and he's now just finished at the Iowa workshop, and, he like, the editors at the Paris Review heard him read, and they also loved his voice, right? And so now he's got, like, a novel coming out. I mean, he it's so cool, and I feel like we were really a part of his story. So yeah, please, we're always looking for new writers. Um, so
It's so lovely to hear that editors are, like, rooting for you as a writer and remember you
right.
with what
Oh,
you're.
well, that is totally the split lip. I don't know if that's true at, like, every literary magazine. I think that that might be a little bit unique to Split Lip in that we view our relationship with the people that we publish as, like, a lifetime family, and, like, we are going to promote you and watch out for you forever. Like, and we're actually still like, I like to say, like, "Oh, we're gonna promote you until you die," but actually this is very I mean, very sad. Martha Solano, one of our, contributors, died last year, but we are still fucking promoting her, I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
So,
that was a big loss for sure.
yeah.
And I think it's not, I don't think it's uncommon for editors and literary journals to, like, really love their writers like that, but
I agree.
but I think a lot of writers just don't know that
Oh,
editors
I agree.
are at
Right.
that level.
Yeah, they don't know that, and they also don't know, like, we have agents sometimes reaching out to us, asking us about you, and, yeah, there's a lot that I think goes on behind the scenes that people don't realize, um, and I think people should be very grateful to their literary editors because people are doing a lot of work you don't see.
Yeah. Now, there's the, inevitable AI piece. We were just talking how much there's the human element, between writer and editor, the human relationship, and then now there's this new technology that's not so new anymore. Patricia's wondering, can you talk about your AI policy at SplitLip? She says she teaches creative writing and has students who speak English as their second language. They want to know if they can use AI to help them with translation. What are your thoughts on AI?
Uh, I really hate it, and we're getting, AI submissions, and they're not good. They're so hollow. They're, like, sound really pretty and fancy, but then at the end, you're like, "What? That was so hollow." There's no deeper meaning, like, there's no emotional resonance from it. So it's depressing to me, actually, AI, and if you as a writer feel you need to use AI to make yourself a better writer, like, I think find a different career. That's what I think. And, use the ri if you wanna use AI to do your other stuff, that's your choice, but for, for creative writing, like, are you really gonna have AI write your poem for you and still call yourself a poet? You're basically plagiarizing.
Mm,
I just have no openness to it other than I think that there can be interesting ways to engage with it that are kind of a commentary on it. And we actually just published in this issue on our homepage right now a piece using predictive text where the predictive text is actually the point of the story. And the author did actually use predictive text to sort of in the opening lines and in the ending lines, but the rest of it is him mimicking predictive text. And it's a very dark and disturbing story about where predictive text takes these kids. And I encourage you all to read it. It's so powerful. It's a little hard to read because there's no punctuation, and predictive text is different from AI in that it's kind of wonky. Like it doesn't always sound right or make sense. The old predictive text from like 5 years ago or something before we were dealing with Claude and all that. And then there's also a beautiful essay that was in the Best American Essays many years ago that the edition that I think Alexander Chee edited, and I always forget the author's name, and I need to, like, tattoo it to my brain or something, but it is a story of grief told with AI, um, where there are various versions of the story that start with the AI, and then the writer writes the rest of it and then restarts, and it's so cool. And that's really using AI in, like, a very unique and interesting way. But she's done that. Like, that essay has been written. So, like, I don't know how many more of those essays there can be. Um, but as far as, Split Lip, we are just asking everyone to disclose if they've used it. We ask people tell us in their cover letter how they used it, why they used it. And then we also, when we send an acceptance, we ask people to disclose again, did you use AI? And we also, in our contract, again, when you sign the contract, you're signing that you wrote this piece, and if you used AI, you have disclosed its use to us. Um, so if an author ever used AI and somehow got through our system and were accepted, and then we later found out it was written with AI, we would take it off our site. Like, we want to know, we want to be able to tell our readers who are taking their precious time to read us how it was written. And so anyway, yeah, I have very strong feelings about it.
And across,
And it's a bummer. It is a bummer. I don't like, being in my submissions queue and finding all this, like, slop.
yeah, I
It's
think
not making anyone's work better. I promise you, it is not making your work better.
I've heard this from every single editor I've asked.
Oh, really? Oh,
I've not
interesting.
a single editor that's been like, "Yeah, it's okay, it's fine." And I think it really goes counter to the thing that you're looking for, which is that unique voice, right?
Right, right.
That
It's you're getting the voice, just it's like a distilled voice. I'll tell you something really interesting. So we have this relationship with the Berkeley Writing Center where we've been working with their interns. And the first year we did it, we got all these resumes and applications from these amazing the Berkeley students are so impressive. So impressive. And the first year, their cover letters were so interesting, and I really got a sense of, like, who they were, what they why they were wanted this position, that kind of thing. But then the next year, they were I would say 75% of them were written with AI. I couldn't distinguish between them. I just couldn't tell. I was like, "How do I know? You all just wrote something that, like, sounds fancy, means nothing." So it was hard.
yeah. Yeah, it eliminates all of those, things that make you stand out as an individual.
Right, right, because I couldn't tell.
Yeah. John has a literary theory question. He says he's been struggling for years to write a short story without any characters just to prove it's
Ah,
possible.
interesting.
Do you
I
think
hope it's I hope it's possible. Yeah, yeah, you gotta do this. I mean, if someone wrote that book without the letter E,
I
have you heard about this constraint? There's a famous book that I have not read that does not use the letter E. I think it might be a French book. I can't remember. It's famous. Yeah, people smarter than me will know what it is. Yeah, no characters, man. Go for it. That's awesome. If you, I'm gonna make it happen. I don't know what it would be like, but when you've perfected it, like, yeah, send it our way and write in the cover letter, this is the story with no characters that I promised you that. But that sounds really hard. I'd love to talk to you about how you're envisioning it.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
cool.
that sounds really
Maybe I
interesting.
mean, is it all about setting? Like, is it all about objects? Does the setting become a character then? Like, is it really characterless if the setting is the character? I don't know. I don't know. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah, characterless versus subjectless, right?
Oh, right. That's
Yeah.
a good point. Right.
Chris has a similar question. He says, or she, they say, Columbus Review maybe. I came across a new market yesterday, Columbus Review maybe, where the editor didn't want to see the word said, as in he said. What do you think about that in stories? I've heard the opposite, where that is,
Okay, can I tell you, I got a literary agent rejection a few months ago where she said that I had used 4 of her most hated words. One of them was laugh. I was like, or giggle, or I don't remember, but I was like, that lady is so full of shit. Like, how can you ban certain words? You can't use the word said. That is so stupid. I'm sorry. Like, write whatever you want to write and send it to someone else who doesn't have a list of words that you're not allowed to use. That's so ridiculous. I'm sorry.
I think for a long time, that was actually the recommendation is to get rid of.
Right, because it will fade away. Like many people don't like the very descriptive, like he whispered, he whatever, but I don't know. Whatever you want to do. There's no rules here.
How do you feel about sci-fi? Do you publish any sci-fi or
We
speculative?
have published we don't get a ton of it, but I we have a number of people on our staff who would be psyched. We have published I'm trying to remember what the name of it. We have published speculative work, but we tend not to be like super genre. Like if it's like really, really sci-fi, um, it would have to still feel literary in some way, I guess. It's like we don't publish romance, but yet we have a lot of stories about people falling in love and breaking up and having sex and so I think it just depends on the story. Um,
What about, for your poetry team? How do they feel about formal poetry?
well, I mean, I think we all get really excited when a poem is using a really hard form,
Mhm.
like a ghazal. We're always pumped to see one of those. So hard to be good, but when they're good, they are really good. But our poetry doesn't sound like poetry like out on a moor written by Wordsworth. Like that's not. I would say that our aesthetic and poetry does kind of tend toward a more modern sounding voice, which doesn't mean we don't want form. Um, it just means that, yeah, we don't have a ton of like nature poetry and iambic pentameter. But I think if you read a bunch of our poems, you'll get a better sense of like instead of me describing what our poems are like, I think it's best to just read some. And I mean, we had one of my favorite poems. It's like about soup. It's like called Hot Soup, and it's not like super modern in voice. Or that we have a beautiful poem that's about quilting. And it doesn't have like a super modern voice. I don't know if that answers your question, but please read our poetry before you submit because I think it does help, and read widely because the poetry runs the gamut.
Yeah, and I think going along with that, I think it can be a hard sell to publish rhyming poetry these days, or I
Right,
jam.
right, right. But have you read the book Couplets?
No, I haven't. Is
Oh
it
my God, it's so good. It
is
is
it all in rhyme?
so good. It is couplets that rhyme the whole way through. So many of the couplets, the rhyme is so interesting. I wish I could remember one that's really. I used to remember, but um, yeah, man, go read that book.
See,
That's some really good rhyming.
there are no rules. There really are, and I think
Yeah.
editors love when you break a rule well.
Right, right. And if you're doing like sonic play, we love that. We're all about the sound. So there can be rhymes within a poem. It just depends on how you do it.
And is it free? Jackie is wondering, is it free to submit in May?
So yeah, we're starting May 1st. We open to free subs. And I think they will be open in all categories all month except poetry. Oh my God, we get so many poems. And then it's hard for us to respond in a timely fashion. So I've started shutting those down in the middle of the month so that we're not like we'll get like 100 poems a day. It's just like so many. Um, so if you have poetry and you want to submit in our free period, please submit like the first week that we're open to free subs. I highly recommend that.
And then you close for the summer, right?
Yeah, we close for the summer. Our submittable is not open at all during the month of July, and it's not open during the last 2 weeks of the year. But otherwise, it's open. It doesn't mean we're necessarily reading in August. Like some of us will be reading, but it won't be as active. But I think we'll let you submit, like, you can get I know it's frustrating in August when everyone's closed, but you have all this great work you've perfected over the summer, and you just are waiting for September 1. We often will open before then so that we can take advantage of those early folks.
Okay. That's really kind of you. And I
Well,
think
I don't know.
so I think we've got maybe time for just one more question. And Mark
Okay,
is
great.
wondering, how do you feel about cursing as part of dialogue? Is it
Oh, yeah.
acceptable? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have a pair of earrings that my kids hate when I wear that spells out "fuck." Yeah, like, of course we have swearing, yeah, for sure.
What if people are going to be submitting in May, what what would you like to see? Is there anything that you're really hungry for that you would love to see in your queue?
This question I can never answer because I don't know what I want until I see it. I really don't. I'm more curious, what are you imagining that I cannot in this chair right now imagine myself? Like I there is no topic that's off limits. I mean, and that's how all of us on our staff feel. No one is looking for a particular thing. That's just would be so boring for us, I think. So
So write what you really want to write.
yeah, write what you want. And like we I know that sometimes because we say we're into voice driven work and that we like a pop culture twist that hits you in the kidneys, like this very dramatic description of what we like. But we also like really quiet pieces. I mean, we published a story by I think its name is Charles Brown, that was just like about walking in the woods. I mean, we like so many different kinds of topics and voice and ways of telling a story. So, I would really like to see something I've never seen before,
Yeah.
and to see it really well done, like executed really well.
Well, I think that's a really great challenge for everyone at home. If you don't get it in May, then write it over the summer and send it.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh,
Exactly. Well, thank
Maureen,
you so much. Thanks to everyone who came. It was so. I wish I could see all your faces.
it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. I've really enjoyed this hour. It went by really fast, and I'd
It
love to
did. It
talk
did.
sometime in the future.
Yeah. That sounds great. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone at home that wrote in questions, and we hope to see you next time.
Great. Thank you. Bye
Bye.
bye.